This is Taj Al Khazin connecting with you from Ottawa, Canada, in our series of video YouTubes. This is the video YouTube number 18. Those listening to this video tube, if you want the list of the other 17, please connect with me via YouTube directly, not through a group. I cannot respond to a group, but I can respond to an individual request. There is a number of issues that will be addressed in this session. The first one, it seems that there are a lot of stupid people who do not understand the situation. And I'm talking about those people in South Sudan. While there are people with brains, people with compassion, there are people who just don't understand. And with my long encounters and engagement in South Sudan that spanned over 50 years, 50, most of the people in the government are regrettably dismissive. They don't want to write, they don't want to take the time to listen, they don't want to take the time to read, they don't want to take the time to analyze. They are just dismissive. No, that's not going to happen. Well, let me tell you one thing. The possibility of Sudan shutting the valve on the oil of South Sudan is a real possibility. Sudan earns about $10 per barrel passing through the pipeline. The RSF have control of Higlig, but the oil is not exported from Higlig. Yeah, it can be kept over there. And let me remind you, we can retaliate. Sudan can retaliate. You remember several years back, South Sudan decided to stop the production of oil until an agreement was reached on the passage. They shut the valve on all the wells to deprive Sudan of what was agreed at their share and to deprive Sudan of the passage fee. It went on for 4 months, 5 months. So it is doable. If South Sudan can do it, why can't Sudan do it? Especially when Sudan is being stabbed in the back now. Juba can call one phone call to Abdulaziz Al-Hilu and he will mind his business. He will pull his dogs back and he will go to Kauda. He cannot survive 10 days without South Sudan. And if South Sudan does not do that, if the president does not do that, we are going to put a very big question mark on him and his care and concern for Sudan and being a good neighbor. Sudan can be a good neighbor and can be a vicious neighbor. And my other issue that I thought about the other day is this habit of African heads of states clinging to the seat. And I remember very many years back, I invited General Obasanjo for lunch in Addis Ababa. And every time I said African leaders, he would look at me, and Obasanjo is a giant. And then finally he started shouting. He said, look here, young man, in Africa, there are no leaders, there are only rulers. And how very true. Let me give you an example. Omar al-Bashir was ruler for 30 years. Numeri was ruler for 16 years. Salva Kiir has been ruler for 18 years. Mugabe was ruler for 27 years. Isaias Afwerki of Eritrea has been ruler for 29 years. Secretary of Guinea, the butcher. Secretary is the one who killed Diallo Telli, the second Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity before it became the AU, with what they call black food. Black food is when they are not fed and they are not given water. And Diallo Telli was tortured almost to death. He signed the confession, and then he was deprived of food and water until he died. Very big bastard, Diallo Telli. Equatorial Guinea, there are two Guineas, 43 years. Cameroon, Paul Biya, 40 years. Republic of Congo, Nguesso, 38 years. Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, 36 years. Istuani, King Muswati, 36 years. These are just examples. Look at those years. The same person, the same man sitting corrupt and corrupting for all those years. How do you expect progress in Africa? That's the very thing that needs to get to change. Now a message for General Burhan, Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance. Please listen carefully. And now I'm talking about Sudan. I'm going back to Sudan. The main produces exported from Kenya to Sudan were tea, $35.5 million. $35.5 million. Stop that. Stop any imports from Kenya. They do have a high gross domestic product, but the tea is coming from the mountains. It is coming from the population. That will exert pressure on Nairobi. This is the language that these guys understand. No diplomacy, no communication, no visits. And believe it or not, tobacco, cigarettes from Kenya, $18 million. And matches, kibrit, matches for $1.84 million. During the last 26 years, the export of Kenya to Sudan have increased at an annual rate of 7.75%, from 9.48 million in 1995 to 66 million in 2021. Look at what Ruto is doing, and look at the collaboration of the IGAD with him. And we're importing from Kenya? Are we stupid? General Burhan put a freeze. Even the stuff that is in Port Sudan, don't allow it to be custom cleared. Let it rot there or let it be taken back, and give instructions that not 1 pound of tea is to be imported from Kenya. Back to the AU, and back to when it was the OAU, Organization of African Unity. And to show you the ruthlessness of the African rulers, Diallo Telli, from September 1958 to June 1964, he was Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity. The top position in the Organization of African Unity. And then on 18th of July, 1976, Diallo Telli was arrested at his home and imprisoned at Camp Boiro. Mamadi Kieti, the president's brother-in-law, was head of the commission of inquiry that condemned Telli. Telli was accused of leading a plot by Fulanis against the state of Guinea. The Fulanis are Nigerians and close to Guinea. He was subjected to intense interrogation, torture, and an inadequate diet. After the second torture session, Telli was shattered and agreed to sign a confession of his treason. This was an incoherent document, even after edited by the tribunal. In February 1977, 5 prominent prisoners were killed through the black diet, no food and no water. Diallo Telli was one of them. This is how Africa works. This is the rotten work of Africa. We need to be careful. We need to be careful. We need to call a spade a spade. I told you before, there is no political correctness from now on. This is about Sudan. The IGAD, the goddamn IGAD, the paper tiger. Uganda leads the IGAD in integrated production and integrated trade. IGAD has five areas for integration: trade integration, productive integration, microeconomic integration, infrastructure integration, free movement of people. It is only the free movement of people, and only in a couple of countries that they have achieved any success. That was Somalia and Djibouti. Talk of success. These are the 5 dimensions of integration. And on the rating, Uganda comes at the top, followed by Kenya, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somalia. Sudan and South Sudan and Eritrea are at the bottom. But even the top, Uganda, other than productive integration score, which is 0.92 out of 1, everything else is rubbish. So I cannot understand why Sudan or any sensible country is in this pariah, good for nothing institution. Both of them. And then General Burhan has his first very strong letter, and he said that the armed forces will be keen for the transfer of power to a civilian government run by the people and not like what the rebels want to do. The ballot box, General, only the ballot box. Be careful about repeating the experience after the fall of Bashir. And those non-entities, nobody's people without a power base, they are part of the mess. They are part of the creation of the current mess you are in. No transfer without elections and the ballot box. That's the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. The ballot box, nothing else. ما في حكومة بتاعت كفاءات ولا صعاليك تاني يجوا داخلين. It's only the ballot box. The army is to stay in control and run the country until there is a constitution, there is a census, so that we know how many people are eligible for elections. You have to have the census first. You have to have the constitution first. You have to set up the elections committee, independent elections committee first. You have to invite international credible observers first. Only then you can have a free and fair and credible elections in Sudan, and only then the transfer of power happens. Don't repeat the mistake of 2018, 2019, and the rubbish that was going on, and is greatly responsible for what we have and what we are today. General Burhan, you talked about istimfar. My advice to you was levy in mass. General mobilization of the whole country. Istimfar is a request, and istimfar is operational readiness. Yeah, that's fine. But that can be part of the levy in mass. In the levy in mass, you have got one authority. In the levy in mass, you command people, you do not request them. In the levy in mass, everybody rises to protect the state. And that's what's required now. It's not in istimfar. You are an economy of war, you are in a security of war, you are in international relations of war. Don't underestimate the impact and the long-term impact of what happened in Sudan. Don't be reluctant. If South Sudan does not stop Abdulaziz al-Hilo, and if South Sudan does not back out of collaboration with Ruto and the IGAD, you shut the valve of oil in Port Sudan. People are saying that will hurt Sudan. Well, I would rather be hurt than lose my pride. Lose the tools of telling the people that the status quo is not an option. You cannot do what you want with me. I'm still standing tall. You need to stop imports from Kenya right away. Right away. And not only Kenya. Any country that is hurting Sudan. Any country that's backbiting Sudan. Any country that is betraying Sudan. Any country that is playing with the independence and integrity and sovereignty of Sudan, don't import a dollar worth of goods from them. And don't export a dollar worth of goods to them. Use gum Arabic as a weapon. Use gum Arabic as a weapon. Let it be stored for a while. But don't export it anywhere where people are insulting Sudan. All of a sudden, South Sudan has decided to sign on the CFA, Cooperative Framework Agreement of the Nile Basin Initiative. Goodness gracious, Canada is the father and mother of the Nile Basin Initiative since 1992. I work on that with the late Ali Shadi until it came to reality. But Canada doesn't like to raise their flag all the time. We did this, we did that. And with the Nile Basin Initiative, I was one of the people who pushed and pushed and pushed South Sudan to sign on the Nile Basin Initiative and then to ratify it. Then I got the good news from a good friend of mine that now this is going to happen. And indeed, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Deng Dao, today has confirmed that the signature and ratification are going to go ahead. I hope that they stick to that and that it is signed and it is ratified at the same time. And as we know that the countries that have so far signed on the agreement are Kenya, Burundi, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. Those who have ratified are only Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. Out of the 11 countries, if we got 6 to sign and ratify, the CFA will enter into force, including Article 14B, as agreed by all the countries and objected to only by Egypt and Sudan. So South Sudan, by doing that signature, is proving that it is an African country standing with their African brothers and sisters and signing on this important agreement. We need 6 to sign and ratify. And congratulations and hats off to Deng Dao Deng, the acting Minister of Foreign Affairs, and a group of parliamentarians, I don't want to mention their names, who were actually the ones who moved this file and made sure that it passes through the legislative so that it is given to the president for signature and assent. And my advice to my fellow brothers and sisters in South Sudan, don't be dismissive. Be alert. Be honest. Don't stab Sudan in the back. Stop Abdulaziz al-Hilo. Stop collaborating in any way with the IGAD, the AU, and Kenya against the interest of Sudan and the interest and the instructions and the will of the current ruling government of the day in Sudan. And I think I will stop there, and I will see you and talk to you in an upcoming video that will be number 19 since we started this series. There is a website that's being constructed now through the help of a very good man and a good friend. And as soon as this website is up, there is so much material that is going to go into it, a lot of analysis, a lot of contributions, a lot of YouTubes, and we shall continue. We shall support the armed forces, and we shall not allow Sudan to go down the trap of being a failed state. But we would like the senior officers of the armed forces of South to stand tall, to fear nothing, and to make sure that they engage the people in the struggle, they engage the people in defending Sudan and its well-being. God bless you all.